Hey everybody, John Felt here, and this is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing for July 26th. You know, usually after we've had a heat wave for a number of weeks in summer, we can get a break and get some cooler and drier weather. And I do see that ahead. It might not last real long, but it's definitely going to be a pretty welcome break. Let's get started in today's briefing. First off, take a look at where we have heat warnings, and covers a large part of the central and eastern U.S. We also have pockets of very heavy rain producing downpours. And we had that last week. You know, I talked about that in a post of how we've had so many heavy downpours so far this summer. You can see the blue shades here, some really heavy rain. That's over 4 inches of rain. And everything is moving along the north side of this area of high pressure here. And lots of heavy rain reports, also some wind reports as well. Okay, now we take a look at the dew points here, and I mentioned how we're hitting 80 degrees in spots. The actively growing corn and other crops is pulling that moisture out of the ground into the lower atmosphere. But you need some lift. You're just going to get muggy and dry conditions if you don't have some lift. And this boundary here, this front, is what's causing the lift, and that's where we're having the heavy rain. And that boundary is just north of the ridge of high pressure. And you can see last week, here's our high pressure, and here's our band ring of fire, where we have the thunderstorms moving along the north side of that ridge and then curving down to the southeast. That's anywhere from 3 inches to over 5 inches of rain. So last week we had some really hot weather. We had temperatures 2 to 4 degrees, even as much as 6 degrees above normal for the week. Hottest temperatures in yellow were 90 to 95. The orange was 95 to 100, and this darker shade of orange was above 100 degrees, and we even had a number of areas above 105. Now, what's also interesting to me is how we're having the overnight low temperatures stay up. Anything in red, it did not drop below 70 degrees, which isn't all that unusual. But look at this area here along the Mississippi River Delta, Mississippi River Valley. That's a low spot. I think we have dew points sort of settling into that area. Really, really warm, muggy conditions. And that's where the crops are growing pretty actively in that fertile ground. And that kept those dew points higher at night and kept low temperatures above 75. So we have some flooding in spots where we had the heaviest rain around Kansas City, parts of Kansas, and this area in here could be getting some additional heavy rain this weekend. Now that's the short term. It's putting some water in our rivers, and that's sort of good because as we get into August, this middle part of August, late August, I'm thinking that pattern shift I'm going to talk about here in a minute is going to change things, and we won't have any significant water maybe going in parts of these rivers, so they're going to go down fairly quick at that time. So right now we have this area of high pressure. That's our heat dome, and that's causing our hot weather. And then by midweek it's still here, but we're starting to be influenced a little bit more by this low. And by the end of the week, take a look at that. We have a dip in the jet stream. The jet stream comes down here, and that's going to change our air mass finally and bring some cooler weather. And you can certainly see it here. The hottest air, central and eastern U.S., shifts over to the western U.S., and by August, that's the area that's unusually hot. And then this big dome of cool air, cooler, maybe not cool, pleasant air for summer, and much drier air really dominates, and it lingers into August, into early August. Okay, so take a look how drastic this will be. Early in the week near 90 in Chicago, the rest of the week 70s, St. Louis near 100, and then dropping down into the 70s and 80s. So a really big shift in parts of the central and eastern U.S. So any significant rain, well, there'll be pockets of heavy rain again, mid-Atlantic region, North Gulf Coast, parts of Nebraska. Most areas look pretty dry. Now I'm going to be covering the tropics pretty close now that we're getting into closer to the peak of hurricane season. as we go through August into September. And right now it looks really quiet. I don't see anything this week. Take a look at this area of sort of milky shades here. That's in the main development region, and that's dust that has sort of moved off of the African coast into this area, and that's inhibiting activity this week. So I don't see anything this week. Okay, so this is week 2, and you can see the cooler air lingers in the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes into the Northeast, and the warmer air pushes off into the west and the southwest. And this is weeks 3 and 4. Just want to point out that the heat returns in weeks 3 and 4 in the Northeast and the Northwest. That's this week's briefing. If you've been in this heat and you're going to have the cooler air, that's great. Take care.